Gentleman from California, Mr. Sherman.
Chairman Yellen, we learn a lot from you. Thanks for being here. You also have a chance to learn from us, not because we have any great economic theories worthy of your consideration, but because we represent 60-plus districts from coast to coast. We're intensely aware of what's going on in our districts, and we prove that biannually. And the reports you get from members of this room as to what's happening in their districts are uniform, even though our economic theories are disparate and in many cases unworthy of your attention. The economy is worse than your statement indicates. There isn't a person in this room who has waxed eloquently about how everything's going spectacularly in their district. And many, many members have told me and spoken about how in a very large percentage of this country we're still in recession. A second reason for you to push toward more quantitative easing and a continuation of low interest rates is that you have very few tools left if we slip back into recession. And you have all the inflation fighting tools still available to you. I think you understand that. There's a second area where I think you can learn from us, and that's not in the monetary policy area, but you're a top bank regulator. We had an exchange back in February in which you described how important it was to loan money in local communities. And I explained to you, and I've talked to my colleagues here, your regulators haven't gotten the memo. You can send them a copy of the remarks you made in response to my question in February. Many small businesses can't get loans even with an appropriate risk premium. In fact, if you're trying to borrow money at prime plus 5, oh my God, you're terrible. We can't talk to you. Rather than the idea that you're going to make 100 loans and one of them's going to go into default, it's you're going to buy 100 government bonds, and that's not a way that a bank can contribute to the economy. You may remember back in February we talked about the Financial Accounting Standards Board lease accounting project, which would capitalize all leases and add $2 trillion to the liabilities of balance sheets of American business. And at that time you indicated that you'd have your staff look at this, both in terms as to whether you would want to comment on something that other economists have said will cost $400 billion to our GDP as companies try to rebalance their balance sheets, and because nobody can build a big building without a long-term tenant, and if you penalize companies for signing long-term leases, you're not going to have long-term tenants. I wonder if you could at least recommit to having your staff look at that, perhaps be willing to comment on it, because those folks at the Financial Accounting Standards Board, the slightest hint from you or your staff would be very instructive to them. And if they won't listen to you, at least you could price into your economic projections an economic risk that only an accountant would bring to your attention. I wonder if you can comment on the lease accounting.
We will have a look at that and try to get back to you.
Okay. As to designating SIFIs, I hope that you would focus not on the size of an entity's assets, but the size of their liabilities. It was Lehman Brothers' inability to pay its liabilities that was the final straw that broke the economy. If you had some blue chip name that everybody loved, and so they were able to issue trillions of dollars of credit default swaps, I'd say they'd be a SIFI, and they'd be particularly a SIFI if they didn't have a lot of assets, because their failure would have a substantial effect on our economy. So I hope that you would look at the liabilities and contingent liabilities of an entity, not their assets, and that would argue for not designating as a SIFI an unleveraged mutual fund, since they don't have liabilities.
I mean, FSOC is, in its analysis, just as you said, trying to identify whether there are specific and well-defined channels by which the failure of a particular organization would have spillovers to the rest of the financial system that would be severe. And it's not just a question of size and not just a question of the assets they hold, but, for example, if there are liabilities and if they are highly runnable and they're a highly interconnected firm, that would point in the direction of systemic risk, as you indicate.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Nagelbauer, Chairman of our Housing and Insurance Subcommittee.